What's up, everybody? Today I wanted to start off talking about the Behemoth, the new Titan Darkness subclass that launched with Beyond Light. Now, initially I wrote off the Behemoth as an underwhelming and useless subclass. After some brief playtime, it seemed sluggish, clunky, the melee felt really unreliable. I just didn't see much use for it in PvE or PvP. But boy, was I wrong. In fact, I think this may be one of, if not the best Titan subclass for PvP at the moment. So let's get into what makes the Behemoth such a monster. Starting off, we have the melee ability Shiver Strike. The description reads, hold input to leap through the air. Releasing unleashes a powerful dash attack that knocks targets back, slowing and damaging them. Right off the bat, this melee ability is different from any Titan melee we've had before. It's not a damage buff or a debuff, it doesn't one-shot, and it requires some timing and accuracy to work right. Its mechanics are also a really big part of the super, so if you can master it, you'll be even more deadly while your super is active, especially once you add in some aspects and fragments. As far as how to use Shiver Strike, the first thing I want to make clear is that it can be very unreliable if you just tap the melee button. It's not a last second panic melee like Shoulder Charge. It also uses up the charge, even if you miss, so you need to be a lot more calculated and sparing with how you use it. Now, in order to master Shiver Strike, you'll have to understand that there are two parts to the ability. There's the initial leap, and then the actual melee swing at the end. If you just tap the melee button, your Titan will lunge forward and swing at the end really quickly. This doesn't have much, if any, tracking or aim assist, so it can be really easy to over or undershoot if you're trying to hit someone with it. However, if you hold the melee button, the Titan can lunge even further, and if you release the button just before you reach a target, the tracking becomes a lot stronger and consistent. Now, the timing will require some precision. Think of it like a breech load grenade launcher, where your Titan is the grenade. Remember, you're only going to be holding the button for a very brief moment, but you'll want to release it right in front of your target, because as soon as you release it, the Titan will swing a little bit further, connecting with the target if you're accurate. As far as use cases, yes, it's a great offensive ability, but it can be used defensively to escape or dodge an incoming attack, even in the air. The slowing effect from Shiver Strike is also very brief, about 2 or 3 seconds, which isn't super useful to have on a non-projectile melee. However, the knockback can be really good for putting distance between you and your target, which will allow you to safely finish them off with a weapon outside of shotgun range. As a fun bonus, you can use Shiver Strike to throw enemies off the map, or send them flying into a wall where the collision damage might kill them. You can also use it to kick a guardian out of a well of radiance and Titan bubbles, making them more vulnerable to finish off. Now let's move on to the grenades. I'll keep it brief since they're all pretty simple and shared across 3 classes, but we'll touch on them a little bit more once we get into aspects and fragments. The first Stasis grenade you will have unlocked is the GLACIER grenade. The description reads, a grenade that creates walls out of stasis shards to block damage and freeze targets. These walls can be shattered for damage. On its own, the GLACIER grenade is the most versatile grenade in the kit. It can create cover with a wall of stasis crystals, platforms on the walls to gain the high ground, and freeze enemies that get trapped in its formations. You can also throw it at your feet to launch yourself into the air with some momentum. The next grenades you will unlock are the DUSKFIELD and the COLDSNAP grenades. The description for the DUSKFIELD grenade reads, a grenade that shatters on impact, leaving behind a field that slows targets and freezes those who do not leave the volume. When using DUSKFIELD, you'll want to remember that its purpose is inflicting status effects, not dealing damage. Targets in the dome created by the DUSKFIELD grenade will be slowed and unable to use movement abilities like sprint, boosting, or dodging. However, the Dawnblade's Icarus Dash ability still works for some reason, allowing for an easy escape. Sorry, Titans and Hunters. Now, targets within the grenade's status field will be frozen after 3 seconds, leaving them completely vulnerable for you to finish off. And a super important thing the description doesn't mention is the big suck. When the DUSKFIELD grenade hits the ground, a powerful vacuum force will pull nearby enemies into the center. This is great for control game modes and general ad control. The final grenade is the COLDSNAP grenade, which reads, a grenade that freezes on impact and sends another seeker to find and freeze targets. This grenade is as easy and straightforward as it gets. It's a seeker grenade that tracks 2 targets very aggressively and freezes them on contact. It's pretty fast and will even climb up walls or small obstacles to reach its targets, similar to the Colony grenade launcher. However, a vigilant opponent can easily evade these by jumping out of its reach. In short, this is a very low effort and high reward grenade. Moving on, let's wrap up the foundations of the Behemoth with the super, Glacial Quake. The description reads, summon a Stasis Gauntlet. While the super is active, slam your gauntlet down to create a shockwave that freezes targets and sends out crystals to freeze additional ones. Supercharge your Shiver Strike for bonus damage. Sprint through crystals or frozen targets to shatter them instantly. Now, what's not mentioned is, when you cast a super, nearby targets will become frozen, allowing you to clean them up pretty quickly. However, you'll want to be mindful of where and when you cast this super. The casting animation leaves you vulnerable for a moment, so I don't recommend casting this in the middle of a gunfight, especially if your shields are down. The slam attack of this super sends out a wave of stasis crystals to freeze targets in front of you. Once a target is frozen, you can finish them off with the Shiver Strike or obliterate them by sprinting through their new crystal prison. The bonus damage for Shiver Strike during your super allows you to kill normal guardians in one hit. This amped up version of Shiver Strike feels a lot more consistent and stickier than the standard form. Shiver Strike also provides amazing mobility during the super, allowing you to quickly cover great distances and evade enemies more easily. Now, one major flaw I've noticed is the in-air limitations, which I believe comes from the third-person view. When you're in the air, you're only able to look down at what feels like a 45-degree angle, making it pretty difficult to hit opponents below you with the Shiver Strike. In these situations, it's best to come down with the slam to freeze them and finish them on the ground. Alternatively, you can back up really quickly to get the opponent in your view and then fly back into their face with a Shiver Strike. Now let's dive into aspects and fragments to tie everything together. Aspects are unique utilities that significantly alter the way a subclass can be played. Fragments are modifiers that can be used to fine-tune specific functions of the subclass and its abilities. The first available aspect for the Behemoth is called Cryoclasm, and it is amazing. The description for Cryoclasm reads, enables a longer and more powerful slide. Sliding into stasis crystals or frozen targets shatters them and any nearby frozen targets. Now right off the bat, the mobility you gain from this buff to sliding is insane, and my favorite part about this subclass. You can use it to get around, cut across sight lanes, or use it defensively to quickly slide away if you're in a bad situation. You can also use a slide twice in quick succession before you're met with a cooldown of 4 seconds, which seems to be about 2 seconds per slide, similar to the way Warlock's Icarus Dash works. Now, not only can you slide through stasis crystals, but you can slide through frozen opponents too, which is unbelievably fun. Now, I do want to provide a word of caution with that. While fun, you can actually kill frozen teammates by sliding into the crystals that they're trapped in. Awful, I know, but still kind of fun. Also, it's rare, but if you're low on health, the speed from sliding into a wall with Cryoclasm can kill you, so be careful. Now, a quick disclaimer. At the time of making this video, only the Cryoclasm aspect is available for the Titan, but I'll be sure to give a more in-depth review of the subclass as a whole and Tectonic Harvest when it's released. Moving on, Tectonic Harvest, the other aspect, reads, shattering a stasis crystal creates a stasis shard. This shard grants melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. Right now, we can only speculate how this will perform, but with the amount of shards you see in PvE and PvP, even a return of 5 or 10% melee energy would be amazing. This mod could potentially lead to a lot more frequent Shiver Strikes if you consider the fact that you can reap the same benefit from enemy crystals. Now, like I said, once we're able to unlock this, I'll add a review covering how it performs and how it sort of meshes with the subclass as a whole. Okay, fragment time. Now, as I mentioned before, fragments are modifiers for specific traits found within the subclass, things like increasing status effect duration, energy return, and stuff like that. The first one we'll go over is Whisper of Shards, which reads, shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. It also provides a +10 to the resilience stat, allowing you to get your barricade faster as a Titan, which is super useful, especially if you're running something like Heart of Inmost Light, so you can get your grenades back even faster with the empowerment effect. Now, if you like grenades, this is your fragment. This one is my absolute favorite so far. The buff gets you your grenade back really quickly, and the synergy is amazing with Glacier Grenade and Cryoclasm. You can make your own crystals and slide through them. On top of dealing damage, you'll also get your grenade energy back. And, even better, this will proc on sliding or shooting enemy shards. So do our man Shax a favor, get in there, break some shards, and throw some grenades. Next up we have Whisper of Bonds. Defeating frozen targets with weapons grants you super energy. Now this comes at the cost of 10 points to both intellect and discipline, so you will be, losing a tier here and there. But it pairs really well with COLDSNAP since it seeks out enemies and freezes them on the spot, and the energy return is pretty solid. If you really want to capitalize on this, you can stack it with Whisper of Shards and run something like Traveler's Chosen or a weapon with Demolitionist to maximize your grenade recharge. Next up, we have Whisper of Hedrons. Gain a bonus to weapon damage after freezing a target with Stasis. This comes at the cost of 10 strength points. This damage bonus is a whopping 25% for 10 seconds, which is an insanely powerful tool to have in PvP. It's going to pair really well with the Cold Snap since it seeks and freezes enemies, and if you pair it with, like I mentioned in the other fragments, a Demolitionist or Traveler's Chosen, that's going to get you your grenade back really quick and allow you to really capitalize on, freezing and getting that damage boost on targets. Now just to reiterate, this triggers on freezing an opponent. You don't have to kill anyone, you don't have to do anything else, you just have to freeze them and you get that weapon damage buff. So definitely make sure that you don't overlook this one, especially if you play a lot of Crucible or Trials. Next up, we have Whisper of Durance. Slow from your abilities lasts longer. For those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. This provides a plus 10 bonus to strength. Now, this isn't going to be super useful on Titan because the slow duration from Shiver Strike is pretty low, and on top of that, you're not going to be slowing a lot of things. It's more focused on freezing and shattering stuff. But if you do decide to go with this, it'll pair really well with the Duskfield grenade, maybe trapping them in there a little bit longer, and then you can finish them off with Shiver Strike. Our next fragment is the Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. Now this is another one that won't be super useful on a Titan unless you're running a barricade focused build with something like the Ice Mantle or Titan's Ramparts. If you do this, it will pair really well with any grenade, but Duskfield and Cold Snap might be a little bit more consistent since the Glacier grenade can be kind of fickle with freezing targets. Lastly, we have Whisper of Fissures, which reads, increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Naturally, this goes well with Cryoclasm because Cryoclasm is king, but this will also work during your Super 2, increasing the area effect damage when you run straight through crystals. Keep in mind this will also work if you shoot shards from your enemies and allies as well. I definitely pair this with the Glacier grenade for the shards on demand, and if you don't freeze an enemy with it but they're right by it, slide through and watch them explode. Now I do want to point out that the amount of fragments you can equip depends on the aspects you have slotted. Sadly, Titan's got the shaft here and Cryoclasm only lets you equip one fragment. Hopefully once the next aspect is unlocked, we'll be able to equip both aspects and more than one fragment at a time. Now to wrap things up, I'll give some exotic armor recommendations to run with the Behemoth subclass. Just to clarify so that nobody's upset I didn't include their favorite exotic, these recommendations are based on factors that pair well with the subclass and its abilities, not general neutral game shared by all Titan subclasses. Now, considering effectiveness in both normal and endgame PvE, you want to remember that this subclass is very ability dependent and doesn't have a strong neutral game without them. For this reason, Heart of Inmost Light should be a staple in your PvE builds when you're using the Behemoth. As far as other exotics go, Dune Marchers is a good choice along with Synthoceps, but they won't be too useful in endgame activities like Nightfalls where you won't be using your melee too often. For PvP, Heart of Inmost Light will again be a top tier choice since it will allow you to cast your grenades and Shiver Strike more frequently and really get the most out of your subclass. Antaeus Wards will be another good choice since you'll find yourself sliding more using Cryoclasm. Now they're not as broken and cheesy as they used to be, but they can still provide some good defensive benefit if you're sliding a lot, which is in your best interest if you're running Glacier Grenade and sliding through shards. Lastly, we have Icefall Mantle. This is a good choice because you'll be able to cast your grenade and Shiver Strike while you're under its effect. Now it's a little bit more niche than the others, but can really help if you're cornered or need to hold a zone. In short, I think Heart of Inmost Light will be the best option in both PvE and PvP if you want to really capitalize on the Behemoth's abilities. So to wrap everything up, the Behemoth is solid in PvE, but I think it currently has one of the highest skill potentials in PvP across the Titan subclasses. The Cryoclasm aspect is a huge game changer that finally gives Titans an amazing movement ability to quickly engage and disengage. But, to reiterate, this subclass plays really different from the others, and if you don't play smart or utilize its movement and abilities properly, you will be punished. However, if you put in the time to get a good grip on this subclass, it'll definitely pay off. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the information that came with it. This is also my first video and I'd really like to improve as I make more content, so I'd greatly appreciate any constructive feedback you have. If you have questions, recommendations, and feedback, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more of my content going forward. Catch you later.